Welcome, kayak anglers. You are tuning into the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network, kayak fishing's best network of shows with great hosts covering all things kayak fishing, bringing you special guests covering topics such as shore fishing, river trips, gear reviews, angler profiles, tournament news, and more. Sit back, relax. Let's do this.
Chasing the 20-inchers Susquehanna River podcast is proudly partnered with these great companies. Railblazer, think outside the tackle box. The Chegan brand, the official brand for smallmouth bass. Kayak cushion for them long days on the water. Ken's Jigs, need a custom jig? Don't look any further. Thanks for watching, and welcome to the show. Could this be the 20? I don't know. Hey, Sean.
Hey, Carlisle. What's up, brother?
Not too much. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Chasing the 20-inchers Susquehanna River podcast. What is going on? Have you been out?
Creek hopping. The river has been a little unfriendly lately. I threw a little bit in this morning on the just before church when I drive down to the ramp with my brother, but man, it was still high and muddy. You made it out today, right?
Yeah, I went out for about a 3-hour session. And I quickly realized that the water was like moving really fast and it was like chocolate milk. So I went up one of the creeks and caught a couple fish. I think my biggest was 17-inch, but there was a lot of people back there. So it was kind of frustrating trying to maneuver my kayak up through a creek that's only 15 feet wide.
Yeah.
With everybody's lines in the water. But
I'm sure.
I got up a little bit and found a little area and I fished it. I got to fish with John Duvall today. It was pretty cool. He's one of our listeners and he had commented on my Facebook post earlier about, with the photos that people send in, and he said he was going out. So I said, hey, maybe I'll meet you over there. So I went out. We fished for a little bit. Nice guy.
Cool.
All right, so we're going to start the show like we normally do, guys. We're going to start with the river levels, and the river levels are brought to you by Railblazer. Think outside the tackle box. First, we're going to start with Harrisburg. So Harrisburg right now is sitting at 6.86 feet, and it looks like it's on the rise. And that's nothing. We've been dealing with this through the whole spring, it seems like.
Yeah, it's just been up and down and up and down. Hopefully that the spawn is okay because of that, but
Yeah.
I figured it could either go one of two ways. Either it's going to be really, really good because not many people have been out, or it's going to be really, really bad because it just blew out all the spawning fish. So
yeah. Go ahead, Sean. You want to do the next one?
Yeah, we'll take a look at Lewisburg. Lewisburg actually looks like it's coming back down to normal a little bit. Trying to see. Looks like we're at 6.31 feet at Lewisburg.
Yep. And that's the West Branch.
Right.
And then next we have Marietta. Jeez. Marietta's sitting at 40.42 feet, and it looks like they're on a heavy rise.
Yeah.
So,
and lastly, we have Towanda. And that looks like it's been fluctuating a little bit, but starting a little rise back up. I'm not sure how much further it's going to go up, but could be some good fish in there if it's coming back up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully the rain stops and we can get out there and enjoy the river.
That would be nice.
Yeah, that would be. So, as you all know, we make a post every time we do a podcast about having our viewers send some photos in their recently caught fish that they've caught, and we'll start off with and this is brought to you by Achigan, the official brand of smallmouth bass.
I just got to throw my munchie for the first time this week. I was super psyched.
Nice. Yeah, I'm waiting for some hooks, and then I'll be throwing mine. Ryan Reardon.
Ryan with a nice not a trout for once, you know.
Not a trout. And he's wearing a sweatshirt. The weather's been crazy this spring. You know, I was out there with bibs and a sweatshirt last week.
Yep.
So, and go ahead. We'll do the next one,
yep.
Sean.
Next we have Alex Goby with a very pretty smallmouth. Look at that. I love the stripes on that.
Man, the patterns on that fish is awesome.
Yeah.
And next we have John Duvall.
Nice fish, John.
Looks like chocolate milk back there. He was catching them in.
Yeah, they're still out there. They have to eat sometime.
Yeah.
Next, I actually saw this one on Facebook too. Scotty Hepper with the tank there, filling up the board.
And then we have Larry Okonski with a nice looking smallmouth.
And next we have Carlisle's wife, Nicole, with a nice looking smallmouth.
And a nice looking sweatshirt. She's repping the brand here.
Yeah. There you
Look
go.
At that. Nice. Next we have our very own Sean Lavery with a tank. What'd that go, Sean? 19 and a half?
I think that was big for that day. Yep, 19 and a half. So
big fish for the day. We all had a good day that day.
We did, and I think this was from that same day. Carlisle with another nice fish.
I mean, look what I'm wearing. Like, that's not what you're supposed to be wearing in May.
No.
Come on.
It's been a crazy season.
It has been. So yeah, there you have the photos for this week's podcast.
Thanks you guys for sending those in, and definitely keep sending them in, and we'll keep featuring them. We appreciate it, and we love seeing you guys out in the water and what you're catching. So keep them coming.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you everybody for doing that. On this week's episode, we have Joshua Winebrinner, and he's in the green room right now. Big time fisherman, big time person, really an awesome person, involved with, I know me and him talked about our faith and this and that. Every once in a while we talk to each other. A godly person, a great person to talk to. I met him a while back, but it was in a tackle shop and we didn't really get to talk. We finally got to talk a little bit. We talk here and there every once in a while about, you know, what's he's got going on and stuff like that. But he's real familiar with the Susquehanna River. He fishes it a lot. So, Sean, why don't you bring him in? Welcome everybody, Josh, to the show.
Yeah, welcome, Josh. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Hey, what's going on? Thank you for having me, and thank you for the introduction. I'm humbled.
Yes, sir. Just kind of introduce yourself, Josh. Some people that might not have heard of you, how long you've been fishing, where you're from, you know, where you fish, stuff like that.
Yeah, so I was born in Missouri and raised in Texas. So, you know, I cut my teeth fishing down south and in the Midwest. And I guess it's been about really 30 years that, you know, I've been fishing now and pursuing bass. Really cut my teeth on Table Rock Lake there, the Ozarks of southern Missouri. And it's just, you know, it's just grown. It's been a passion. In fact, I would say that fishing played a big role in probably saving my life, you know. If it wouldn't have been for that outlet, you know, I wouldn't have been able to get away from certain crowds and elements. But it played a huge role in getting me involved in something other than bad stuff.
I
But
get it. I hear you.
yeah, yeah. So but yeah, so we moved here like a little over 20 years ago. My wife is from this area, so we moved here about 20 years ago, and I've spent the last 20 plus years just learning, the Susquehanna, the tidal water around here, the local lakes and all that. And yeah, just I've been a student of bass fishing for over 30 years now, and yeah.
How does it compare to fishing where like in the Midwest or Texas?
Well, for the Susquehanna, it's sheer numbers. You know what I mean? Out where I come from, you're out there looking for 5 bites, a lot of times because you're big lakes, huge lakes. I mean, lakes that are so enormous that you may not even see a boat all day long,
Wow.
especially if you're back in a creek. And so 5-10 bites a day it's a really good fishing day. But to come out here and to get to fish the Susquehanna River, it's just incredible. It's one of the greatest smallmouth fisheries in the world. I mean, in the nation and the world. But yeah, the numbers, it's just incredible. And the quality now, I know when I first moved here, it seemed like the Susquehanna was a little in trouble. But it's really made a tremendous rebound as far as sheer size. It's nothing to go out there and catch, 5-pound smallmouth, several of them, in a season. And I've been very fortunate and blessed to have been able to do that, especially in the last few years, catch giants out there on the Susquehanna River.
Nice.
But so in 2016, I started fishing competitively. I felt called to do it, if I can say it that way. I felt like I was being led into this industry and to fish competitively. And so, with a lot of prayer and encouragement from people that have always supported me, I stepped into it, and it's been really, really awesome. I've had a lot of success. What I consider success, here on the local level and on the state level. And yeah, it's just growing. As I've made 3 Eastern Regional Championships with the state of Pennsylvania, PA Bass Nation. And I finally punched my ticket to a national championship last year that I'll be fishing this year up north on the upper Mississippi River in the fall.
Nice.
And so it's just been, it's just been really great. I can't complain. I've just stepped into really fishing opens now with a fishing partner that I have, Rashawn. And yeah, we're taking a stab at that to see, how we can, do with some of the best fishermen, in the Northeast on tidal water. So. Yeah.
Now, when you said it was like a calling to you, is that something you want to talk about? Like,
yeah, I can, I can, but I don't want to freak people out.
Yeah. Well, so, I know you had talked to me a little bit about it, and it didn't freak me out. So
yeah.
and I'm a normal person, so I don't think it's gonna freak anybody out.
Well, okay, so let me just be a little transparent here. So, fishing, it kind of got out of control for me for many years. Like I kind of put it before everything, right? And it was not in its proper place. It wasn't prioritized the way it was supposed to be. I stopped fishing in all of 2000. I guess it was 16. I stopped fishing altogether. And I may have went out maybe once or twice with just a couple of buddies just to hang out with them. But fishing kind of, it lost its flavor to me, and I laid it down for family. And I can remember at the time I was selling cars, and I really felt the Lord speak to me, and he literally said, "I want you to start bass fishing because I'm going to create a platform in an industry where you're going to release my glory." And when I heard this, I was skeptical, right? And I even wondered, did I just hear from God? And I can remember telling the Lord, well, if this is you, I want you to confirm it through my wife, right? I was looking for confirmation. And so, a couple weeks later, maybe 3 weeks later, I started talking to my wife about what I felt the Lord had told me he wanted me to start doing. And up until 2016, I'd never fished competitively. And I remember sharing this with her, and she had just went to a women's conference. There was like 500 women at this conference, this Christian women's conference. And after sharing what I felt like the Lord wanted me to do, she said, Joshua, each one of us women at this conference received a scripture, a verse from the Bible. And she said, mine was Matthew 4:19. And if any of you know what Matthew 4:19 says, it's come and follow me and I'm going to make you fishers of men. And that was pretty much the only confirmation that I needed, And then I had a lot of encouragement. Some of you may know Buddy at Bass Pro, real tall, skinny guy, been there for years. He has been my biggest cheerleader for many, many years. And he was the one encouraging me. Hey man, you need to start fishing competitively. You need to start, joining some clubs and fishing locally. He said, you're really good. And this, that, and the other thing. So I did. And the rest is history, man. I went from fishing locally, a couple local clubs, and winning Angler of the Year as a co-angler from the back of the boat, to him saying, I think it's time you take the next step, go up to the state, the nation. And I did that. And while that was a little nerve-wracking, because I can remember showing up at my first nation tournament there at the Northeast, and standing there at the beginning of this tournament and wondering, what in the world am I doing here? I really felt insecure. I really felt like I did not belong, because here I'm seeing these guys with their jerseys and their rat trucks and boats, and I'm thinking, geez, I don't belong here. I'm out of my league. But and it was funny, in that moment of insecurity, even the Lord spoke to me then, and he said to me, what does Joshua 1:9 say? And as I'm standing there waiting to meet my boater, I get on my phone, I go to my Bible app, I look up Joshua 1:9, and it says, have I not commanded you to be strong and courageous? For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And, since then I write Joshua 1:9 on my hand here as a reminder when I'm feeling insecure or, afraid, believe it or not. I write that on my hand to remind me that, God's doing this and not me. So, I just want to give him all the glory, because I am where I am today because of who he is in me and through me. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
But the rest,
story, Josh.
Yeah, the rest is history, man, so.
Man, it's working for you. I mean, didn't you just win a co-angler event a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, so our first event for Bass Nation was on the Potomac River a few weeks ago, and I took first place in Lunker with that. And my trophy here, let me pan the camera. There's my, there's my trophy right there, if you can see it. But
yep, nice.
I mean, it's cool. Yeah, got it on the wall.
Congratulations for that, by the way.
Thank you. And then Rashawn and
I was talking to you. I think I was on the way home from the Potomac when I was talking to you, because we had a tournament down there. I think it was the same weekend.
Yes.
And you told me the story, and I was like, wow, that's freaking awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah, man. And Rashawn and I just took eighth place, I'm sorry, last Saturday with the Chester County Bassmasters, the Open down on the flat. So that was really special for us. So
nice. Congratulations, you guys.
Mm-hmm. He's probably watching. So
cool. Sometime we're gonna have you on just to talk about how to fish tidal waters, because I have no luck on tidal waters for whatever reason.
Dude, I'm learning. I'm learning. So I mean, I can tell you what I've learned, what I figured out. But when you think you got it figured out on the tidal water, think again. That place will it'll humble you, man. It'll make you feel like, man, have I ever fished before in my life? So, but yeah, it's just like when it's, we've always heard in the industry, when it's your time, it's your time. You know what I mean? And I really believe in that. When it's your time, it's your time. Nothing can stop it. So it's kind of like just you land on them, sometimes. Because I pre-fished down there for SummerSlam. And everything changed. As you guys know, we had this flood come in, this rain come in, the muddy water, cold muddy water, and then gale force winds. It just changed everything. So
we were down there the day before, I think. Was it the day before the SummerSlam for our Kayak Anglers of Central PA tournament?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the day before. Or was it the week before?
I can't remember.
Was it on a Saturday or a Sunday? Was the SummerSlam the
Sunday?
Okay, so it might have been the day before.
I think it was the day before. Yeah. But yeah, the tidal water. I just started fishing tidal water last year, and I don't know what I'm doing. I just go out there and try to find grass and sit on it all day and hope that they keep coming in and out,
Well, and it could be overwhelming too, because it's such a large area. There's so much, right?
Yeah.
And I think the best advice is just picking one area, rather it be a marina or a small section, and just focus on that. You know what I mean?
Pick it apart.
Right.
Well, when we're fishing from the kayaks, you almost have to do that. We can't we
run
can't like
around.
a boater can, but
right, exactly. And I think that might be why you guys have good success too, is because you're forced to fish slower, and you're forced to fish more methodically. You just can't pick up and run 60 miles an hour somewhere else.
Right.
And so I think that might contribute to you guys' success too. It's, really being methodical in an area.
I heard of people like chasing the tide throughout the whole day, and we can't do that on kayaks.
No, it's tough to figure out.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're running when you should be fishing. So
you used to have a jet boat, didn't you?
Yeah, so I've had 4 jets. Yeah.
Nice. And now you're running not a jet boat, right?
No, glass. Yeah, Champion.
Glass. Yeah. Do you run that on the Susquehanna?
I do from time to time. Like I'll fish long level, Columbia. When I picked up the glass boat last year, I spent a lot of time down at Columbia and long level.
Yeah,
so,
it's a little deeper down that way.
Yeah. A lot of good smallmouth down there. A lot of good fishing down there.
That's where we fished a lot, down Wrightsville area.
Right.
That's where I cut my teeth river fishing. Now I try to get all over the place.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Were you playing? I think I seen that you were selling your glass boat. You were planning on getting another boat.
Yeah, so I started flipping boats like a year and a half ago. That's a whole testimony in itself, how that all started out. I've literally not invested one dime of my family's money in boats
nice.
since I started. So it's a really, really cool testimony. But yeah, so like this glass boat it's my 5th boat. And so my goal and my agenda was to, buy it, do some stuff to it, little upgrades here and there, and then just flip it. Yeah. And then, the plan is, I'm going to buy another jet and fish out of it a little bit, flip it, and just keep building, my money up and to a point to where I can have a glass and a jet. Because I like to fish on the river too. Like I started fishing with NAS, which is a club here on the river. In my opinion, some of the best fishermen on the river, who are really knowledgeable and typically on them all the time. And so if I told myself, if I'm going to compete on the river, I want to compete against the best, right? Challenge myself. So I started fishing with them. And of course, last year, I think we had about 4 or 5 tournaments left, and I had sold my riverboat and wasn't able to finish, but with them, but so I want to be able to compete on the river as well as compete, because I led last year. I led Angler of the Year in points, most of the year until right before I sold my last jet, and I was wanting to get that feather in my cap, of AOY with this club on the river, against these guys, with smallmouth. So, but yeah.
Nice. So the goal is to have a glass boat and then like a glass boat and then a river boat. That's your main goal.
Absolutely. Nice. Yeah.
Good deal.
Because you got it. I love the smallmouth, man. The smallmouth on this river are phenomenal. So.
Oh man, I love it. So let's talk about that. The conditions we're having now. I mean, actually, throughout this whole month. I'm seeing a lot of people fishing from the bank, and I'm not seeing them catch very many fish unless they're in certain areas and stuff like that, where maybe creeks or whatnot. But let's talk a little bit about what Josh would do in conditions that we're having right now, as far as, muddy rivers, high water. I shouldn't say high water. I should, how can I say, like, higher water than normal, because right now I think Harrisburg's maybe 1.5 feet higher than normal. Like what would be your game plan as far as trying to find some smallmouth if you were fishing really dirty water? Are you going to be going and looking for clean water and fishing that, or how would you go about doing that?
No, I typically don't run from the dirty water. Because I think dirty water positions the fish for you. And so it makes it a lot easier. Fish will tend to pull real tight to hard cover, in dirty water. So I don't run from it. Although finding that cleaner water sometimes is nice, because those mud lines obviously will generate, big numbers at times. I've had really, really good days along mud lines. Like in the mouths of creeks and stuff like that. But so I hadn't fished for smallmouth for several months. And then the other week I had jumped onto the Swatera.
That's where I seen you last weekend. I seen you up there.
Right. But then the week prior, I was on there. And that when the water had come up, it was just starting to fall again. And of course it was dirty, you know what I mean? And with having the glass boat, right, I'm real limited to where I can fish. And so, just from experience and history, I thought there's a good possibility these fish could be up here in the mouth of this Swatera Creek. And so, in those situations, I've had tremendous success out on the main branch, and I've had tremendous success like in the mouths of creeks. And so without fishing like for a couple months, the Susquehanna or any of its estuaries, I had one game plan. I was just going to go in there and do what I knew to do. And I just so happened, I pulled out a few baits that have really, really contributed to my success in these conditions. And I've had like big number days and big fish days. One of my favorite baits to throw in these conditions, and I'll typically get real tight to the bank. I'll get real tight to cover, sometimes 10, 15 feet off the bank. You got that new flooded cover. And this is one of my favorite baits. I don't know if you guys can see that at all.
Yeah.
But
it's make them a full screen, Sean.
Yep.
There you go.
So this is a custom bait that a buddy of mine makes out in Missouri, out in the Ozarks, out in Springfield around Branson. And so I did a lot of fishing with this at nighttime for smallmouth and largemouth on Table Rock Lake, just slow rolling it, like on 45-degree banks at nighttime. And so I brought this out here and I transitioned to it, in these muddy water conditions several years ago on the Susquehanna. When the Susquehanna would get 8 foot and it would just be blowed out, like I took this thing out and I would just pitch it up onto the bank, let it hit the bottom, rip it off the bottom to engage the blade, and then just start slow rolling it, down on the bottom, just thump, 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 thump. And man, I had some amazing days. So, something like this, big, bulky profile. I know a lot of people are going to throw a chatterbait in these situations, but if you think outside of the box and throw things like this, you're going to have some amazing days. And I always pair it up with like a Fat Albert twin-tailed grub trailer, just for some bulk, some profile, some more vibration, big bulky skirt. But most any manufacturer is going to make a 1/2 ounce, with a Colorado blade. This one happens to be red, but you can get, black is what I like, or red or purple. But just something like that. It's going to be something different than they're used to seeing. Again, they're used to seeing chatterbaits and tubes and Ned rigs. Something like this, they're not used to seeing. Another one that I throw is a 3/4 ounce. Believe it or not, I throw a 3/4 ounce chartreuse spinnerbait with a twin-tailed grub trailer with chartreuse blades, willow leaf blades. And I'll just slow roll that down the rocks, just crashing it down there in the rocks, and they just react to it as it crashes into whatever is that's down there. But
I feel like that bait gets overlooked a lot.
Sure does.
I don't know if it's probably because of the chatterbait.
Yeah, and I'm kind of glad it gets overlooked. I'm kind of glad it gets overlooked because they don't see it a lot, and so that might contribute to why I have so much success, because it's just something that they don't see a lot. But I think if guys would pull that out, in tandem with their chatterbait, to go back and forth and see which one's going to work better. But I think if guys will throw that in those situations, they'll find that, and that gets big bites. I mean, big bites. Now, so
with dirty water and the flow being a lot higher than normal, are you throwing it on an 8-to-1 or something like that, a reel?
No, I want it slow. So, I used to throw it on 5-to-1 out in Missouri at nighttime, right? 5-to-1 gear ratio. But now I throw it on a 6-3-to-1. That's kind of replaced my cranking reel. I went from 5-to-1 to 6-3-to-1 for slow rolling. I like that. I think that's like the best gear ratio for it, because you don't have to force yourself to slow down like a 7-to-1 or an 8-to-1. You kind of really have to force yourself to turn your handle slow. With a 6-3-to-1, you really don't have to. You just kind of wind it, and it just feels comfortable. It feels natural. You don't have to think about it.
Yeah. Today I felt like I couldn't reel fast enough to keep up with the flow of the river.
And
I was
again,
having a hard time feeling my chatterbait.
Well, and again, that's where weight comes into a factor for me. Like, depending on how fast it is, will determine whether or not I'm throwing the 1/2 ounce, or I'm throwing a 3/4 ounce, or I'm even throwing a 1 ounce.
Yeah.
Seriously,
Makes
I mean,
sense.
yeah, some of my best days have been like a 3/4 ounce spinnerbait. Because number one, that's going to keep it on the bottom. And then your job is just to reel it fast enough to keep it from hanging up on the bottom.
Okay.
But the other day, I was told that on the Swatty, because I hadn't fished in months, and then somebody was like, well, they were catching them on chatterbaits. And I went out there and I started throwing chatterbaits, and I couldn't get bit, right? I'm sure if I would have kept doing it, I would have got bit. But so I go to something that creates, water displacement.
Yeah. That big Colorado blade is a thumper.
Yeah. So in the Swatty the other day with Rashawn, this is what I picked up right here. That's a Mega Bass S crank, and that's the largest one that they make. You know what I mean? We're so used to fishing the 1.5s and stuff.
Right.
And that's great. and that's great, and that'll catch them. But when you're faced with those dirty water situations, these huge, larger than normal profile crankbaits are they're literally going to outshine, those literal, not that you won't catch, because I started out with a 1.5 and I started catching bass. And then I upgraded to the next size, the middle size of the S crank, and was catching bass. And
That's my favorite crankbait.
The S crank.
Oh, I love it.
They're amazing. They're like the old wiggle warts, they hunt, while they're down there on the bottom, but I just picked those up. I didn't know that Megabass made a third size larger than that smallest size. And I specifically bought those for the Susquehanna River, right? Because I know they'll rip the rod out of your hands with that big one there. But I also bought it for the flats, because I was on a crankbait bite down on the flats, pre-fishing too. So in my opinion, in these conditions, sure, there's times when, they're not going to eat that stuff, and you have to go to like net rigs and tubes and drag them real slow on the bottom, or finesse jigs and stuff like that. I love throwing finesse jigs, but there's a time and a place when, you've got to keep that kind of stuff honest. And if I had two baits to throw, do you know what I mean? In these conditions right now, it's going to be that big black spinner bait, or it's going to be a big crankbait.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to throw that crankbait in places that most people are afraid to throw them, right? Lay downs, in the cover, right? Because most guys are afraid to do that. They're afraid they're going to lose it. They're afraid they're going to get hung up. And I get it. I mean, these things aren't cheap, they're expensive, right? And it's kind of sketchy when you have to go into those places and get them with currents moving fast. But that's where they're at. They're in that stuff. They're holding really, really tight to it because it makes them feel secure, because there's absolutely zero visibility for them. It's like somebody told me a long time ago, when the conditions are like this, it's like, imagine if you were in a room and the lights got shut off, right? What would you do? You would
go to the wall.
Yes, right. You would make your way to a wall, and then you would feel around till you found the door, because that wall would make you feel safe and secure. And the fish are kind of the same way.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
We're gonna take a 30-second commercial break, and we'll be right back with Josh. All right, guys, welcome back to Chasing the 20 Inchers, the Susquehanna River podcast. We have Joshua Winebrinner here, and just picking his brain about the conditions we've been dealing with for this past month. High water, dirty water. Just he's giving us some juice here, guys. So if you're not tuned in, get tuned in, and we'll be talking for another half hour or so about, a lot of juice. So today I was out there and I was doing exactly what we were just talking about, looking for tight spots where they'd be wood, any laydowns, anything like that, islands up tight up against islands. And I was throwing a chatterbait. I think I was throwing hot snakes with a gold blade. And I had a scented jerk shad on the back. I probably should have went with black and blue, but the hot snakes has some chartreuse in it. So, I didn't get any bites, not one bite on a chatterbait. So then I went to a creek and I started throwing a little micro jig with a Ned rig on the back, and I started catching them. They wouldn't eat any moving baits in the creek either. I don't know if they're getting really pressured in certain creeks right now. I really had to go finessey with them, and I wound up catching 5. in a couple hours that I went out. But I don't know what else I would have done if that creek wouldn't have been there. The water was cold too. I think it was 58 degrees today.
Wow.
You're dealing with colder water than normal, chocolate milk, high flowing river. I don't know. Sometimes I just get spun out and I don't know what to do after I've tried everything that I can. Sometimes they just don't want to bite. But now I got another thing in my arsenal, thanks to Josh. I'm going to try that spinner bait.
And I think the reason why that finesse stuff worked for you is, you were able to slow it down,
Yeah.
and that's the key with these baits. If they're being fished too fast, they're not going to work in those conditions. So it's a matter of, positioning yourself in a place. So if you're casting downstream and bringing it kind of up, you're able to dictate the speed. You know what I mean? If you're casting upstream or you're casting at the bank, you're at the mercy of the current, right? And I find sometimes, like, if I position myself and cast down toward whatever I'm, targeting or paralleling, right? Now I'm in control. I'm not at the mercy of the current now. So these baits now, I can fish them as slow as I want to, or I can just let them sit there in the current. You know what I mean? I can let them sit there beside a tree and thump, you know what I mean? Or work back and forth. And so that would be a tip for me in these conditions from me, is put yourself in a position where you're in control of the speed of your bait versus being at the mercy of the current. And that'll help you, I think, with these baits at times, when nothing else will get them but a finesse, right?
Yeah.
You take control of the speed of that bait and you'll put more fish in the boat, from my experience.
Me and Sean, we actually did that on Friday, ain't Sean? We were fishing down current. Instead of, most of the people you see they're casting up current. We turned our kayaks around and started fishing current seams down current, and we were able to do exactly what you just said. Control the speed of our bait, and I think we were getting a little bit more of a thump out of it because it's fighting against the current. And I think we caught a couple fish like that, Sean. I think we had a back-to-back one that we did like that. And you always hear people saying, "Oh, you want to fish up current or 45-degree angle," well, which is normally what we all do when the conditions are normal. But when you have high water or fast water moving, and we find ourselves doing that a lot too, Sean, when we do them floats. Yeah, we're not allowed to use our motors. Yeah, where we're fishing down current and we catch them. And I think they're not used to seeing stuff like that either.
Yeah, they always say that they face into the current to look for their meal, but I think in that case they can't see necessarily what's coming, so they're gonna react more to the lateral line movement or whatever else is setting off their other senses than maybe seeing something coming. So
yeah,
because they're still hungry. They still want to eat, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So,
and I think what you said, one thing that I really struggle with, and it's been forever, is you said about slowing down when conditions are tough, and I find that the more I get spun out, the faster I seem to fish, and I have to really think to myself, whoa, you're fishing way too fast. You got to slow down, and it's really just something I constantly have to remind myself, because as soon as I start getting strung out at all, or like frustrated that I'm not catching, then I realize I'm fishing way too fast. Even like finesse stuff, I'll be like moving it way too much, or just fishing way too fast. And so that was one of the lessons that I've learned that's helped me a lot, is just to if you think you're going too slow down a little bit at times.
Well, there's a reason why. Now things have changed, right? With the introduction of live scope and these different type baits like glide baits and bigger swim baits and stuff, like things have changed. But up until recent, if you look back at the history of state records, late records, things of that nature. You know, they were all being caught on jigs and plastic worms. And there's a reason for that, right? These bigger fish, you know, they don't spend a lot of energy, you know what I mean, to go get a meal. They want an easy meal, right? So those jigs and plastic worms, those are typically what slow moving baits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They move pretty slow. And so, you know, there's something to working it slow. The slower you work it, sometimes the bigger bites you're going to get. So
Yeah. I never realized when you say about fishing slow, you know, I never realized how fast I was fishing until I got forward facing sonar. And you see just the little, you know, jigs that you do, that bait moves a lot. So
right.
I learned to really, you know, I don't use forward facing sonar on the river too much, but I learned to not move it as much anymore. And I'm putting more fish in the boat doing that.
Yeah. Well, I know you don't want this to get into a forward facing sonar podcast, but I will say the one thing that I've learned about forward facing sonar in the little time now that I've been using it since the fall of last year is that they're aware of everything that hits the water around them.
Oh yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
as a predator and as prey, I mean, they are tuned in to what's going on around them. And it seems like even though if I have my forward facing out there 90 feet and I throw something in the water, they know it's there. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So
We got a question here from Michael Bradley. He's asking, do you approach tidal current the same as a one directional flow? So I'm assuming he means like the Susquehanna River, like one directional flow.
well, so I guess he's referring to current, you know.
Yeah.
Current is current, you know, rather it's tidal current or you know, river current, one directional flow that he's referring to. You know, fish are going to set up in current, you know, the same, you know, it's going to relate, it's going to translate, you know, from the river to the flats or the Potomac River or any body of water. You know, fish are going to set up the same.
I think that's what helped me because I'm mainly a river fisherman, but when I did start fishing tidal water, you know, when the tides change, if it's gone out, the fish are going to be facing in, right? And then when the tide's coming in, they're going to be facing out. So whichever way the current's going, you know, you're going to fish it kind of like what he says with the directional flow, you know.
Correct. I can remember last year I was fishing a Bass Nation tournament on the Potomac River, and I was a co-angler. And during our tournament midday, the tide started to go out, and it was ripping like it would rip on the Susquehanna River at 7-8 feet. It was pulling fast. Wow. And I remember we were in an area, and I saw this causeway, this kind of a riprap causeway type thing. We're in this area that we were fishing, and I saw the current ripping around that thing, and I saw the seam line, you know, I saw the eddy, and I told my boater, you know, I was like, man, those fish are better positioned, you know, right there in that eddy along that seam line. And luckily he listened to me, man. And we pulled up into this area and we were down current casting up, and I filled out my limit with 3 fish in that spot. Right. Nice. So it translates, you know, like this, like your viewers, you know, asking, it translates, and it's important to pay attention to that. And I think guys that, you know, spend a lot of time or grow up fishing, you know, river type, Susquehanna type situations, I think they kind of should have an advantage on tidal water, because they're going to understand current better than somebody like these Eastern regionals that I've been in. The one that was there, man, my 4 boaters all 3 days, man, they had no clue. They didn't know what to do. And I was fortunate enough to be able to take them to an area, to where we caught fish all 3 days, but it's understanding, again, the direction, which way the grass is laying, because the grass is going to lay a certain way in the river, as well. It's going to lay with the current. So it's always better to throw up and bring it down through the grass with the grass than it is to throw across. And, some days, that pays off throwing it across, but it's work. You know what I mean? It's work. So.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's some good information right there for sure. If any of you guys that are watching have any more questions for Josh, put them in the comments and we'll read them off to him. He's more than happy to answer any questions that you guys have. So getting back to the Susquehanna, and the conditions that we are having right now, which suck for me. Actually, they suck, but let's say it doesn't rain for like the next week. What do you think's going to happen? Is the water's going to clear up? The water's going to go down a little bit, and you think the spawn is still going on, or do you think that there's still some fish that need to be getting spawned yet out there?
For me, I think it varies. I think maybe up north, you may still have some spawning going on.
Yeah.
The further south you get, I think they've probably done,
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not been easy for them these last month and a half with these changing conditions.
It's been tough. The water, especially the water temperature, like, I did hear somewhere where for them to really get into the spawn, we had to have like a steady, 60 some degree water temp, or maybe a little less. As long as it was steady, they would start. But then we were fluctuating so much this past month and a half that it really makes me wonder, like, what happened, like if this spawn was a good one or not,
It's hard to tell, man. I wish I was a biologist. I know prior to, the river coming up a couple of weeks ago, I mean, they were full-blown spawn down here. I mean, they were stacked in the mouths of creeks and they were spawning. Not that I was on them or fishing for them, but just from what I could see and what I heard from people, they were doing it, they were doing their business. And so, I don't know, what the effects are or will be on them, because I mean, there had to be a ton of fry, right? They should still be okay. I mean, the fry got probably swept away, but I'm sure that the survival rate's going to be a lot higher because it was going on weeks prior to, all this rain and flooding that we got. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, what's your thoughts on fishing during the spawn on the river?
Man, I don't want anybody to throw anything at me.
Well, there's a lot of controversy going on on YouTube with people going up creeks and fishing for spawning fish, and if it's good or bad. I'm guilty of it. I've done it.
Sure, we all have. Yeah,
I'm still chasing a 20-incher, so I figured that would be my best bet to catch one. I'm not trying to hurt these fish, especially in the kayaks. We don't put them in live wells. We catch them, take a picture, put them back in, But and we're not looking for beds. We're not fishing, and you probably wouldn't be able to see beds because how dirty the water was anyway. But maybe some people did in some clear water up in creeks. But yeah, what's your thoughts on that, Josh?
Well, it's happening. You know what I mean? Like it's, people fish on the Susquehanna as a living. Without getting too specific, it's their livelihood, and it doesn't seem to me like it's been hurting them, because I've been living here over 20 years now, and I've just seen the Susquehanna getting better and better and better and better, and every year, it's the same thing. These guys that are doing it for a living, it's their livelihood. They're out there every day. Doesn't seem to be hurting the fish. It doesn't seem to be hurting the quality. I think as far as, if you do catch them during that time, or you do target them during that time, it is really important to take a picture and get rid of them as quickly as you can. Let them go let them go exactly where you caught them, and they'll go back to their business. But yeah, I mean, everybody loves the spawn, man, because that's when you typically catch the biggest fish of the year. So, you do you. You know what I mean? I'm not going to hate anybody for wanting to be out there fishing, man. So, yeah, you do you. Whatever makes you happy.
I like that answer.
Yeah.
You have anything for Josh, Sean?
I just wanted to no questions. Just wanted to say I appreciate you sharing the little bit of your face story that you did too. I think so many times people will kind of either not mention it or and I just wanted to say thanks for talking about that, because as a person strong on my faith too, it I like hearing those stories, and I feel like more that people can hear that kind of thing, it can only be a good thing. So
yeah. Well, I'm reminded of a scripture that says, if you are ashamed of me before men, I will be ashamed of you before my Father. And so, who am I to hold men higher than God? So if he's the one who's getting me here, if he's the one that's, doing this, I'm going to give him all the honor and all the glory. So,
well, not to mention that usually following his plan is going to lead you to good things. So if that's the direction he's asking you to go and you're going, it's probably going to be good things. So
absolutely,
that's all I want, which kind of leads me to, and Carlisle, we talked about this. I started a page for Sean and I, as him and I are starting to move forward in fishing as a team, we're going to try to build something. And so we started a page. It's called M117 Fishing. So it's M117 Fishing, which stands for Mark 117. Is follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. And so our faith and our fishing is going to be a big part of what we're going to do. And I just encourage anybody. We really haven't rolled it out, but we did create a page, M117 Fishing. But we have some exciting things we're about to do, some live fishing, going live, really telling all. I mean, people ask me, they're like, aren't you afraid of sharing, your secrets? And I'm not really afraid of sharing my secrets. I really love to see it when people can take what I've shared and put it to practice and go out and have great days with their family, with their friends, with their kids, with their wives. That's what it's all about, right?
That's awesome.
And as far as, sharing my secrets, there are no secrets in this industry. There really isn't. We think that there are, but there isn't. There may be certain spots that might be producing better than other spots at times, but there's really no secrets. And again, if God's doing this, there's nobody's going to be able to hinder what He has for me. So I'm not really afraid of sharing. So that's what M117 Fishing is going to be about. It's going to be about just being real, being authentic, sharing all that we can to help people become better fishermen, because nobody wants to go out and fish and waste time, right? They want to go out and catch fish. So if I can share the things that I know, and that Rashawn can share the things that he knows, and people can go out and catch fish and have fun and make great memories, man, we want to do it. We want to do it.
Like a win-win.
Yeah, and we want to bring God into it too, man. So and that's important. So yeah,
that's awesome. I know you told me your church is on your boat, like in the front of your boat. That's your church.
That's my platform, man. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's my platform.
We did have somebody comment something here. Hold on, let me show it. I just watched a study on this bass on beds. They caught the bass and moved them 200 yards away from the beds, and within 1 to 4 hours, 13 out of 15 were all back on the bed. Yeah.
And Rashawn and I were just talking about that too, with the amount of tournaments, right, that's been going on down in Northeast, and all the fish, being weighed in and released there at Anchor Marine. And fish care is huge. Like, I can't say enough about Chester County Bassmasters. Just the couple tournaments over the years I fished with them, and their devotion to fish care is just amazing, right? But Rashawn and I were talking about that, and we were talking about retreads, right? Like being able to stay around that general area and catch retreads. And I was telling him, I'm like, these bass, they have this like this thing in them, right? To where, they may have went all the way back out, to where their bed was. I mean, do I know that for sure? No, I don't. But there's a good possibility, because I remember watching Bassmasters back in the day, right? And when I was watching Bassmasters back in the day, they used to put tracking devices on 2 or 3 of the fish, right?
Mm-hmm.
And throughout the tournament, they would track the fish. And some of them would like go a long ways away immediately and go back to where they were caught from where they were released. Do you know what I'm saying? And then others would do different things. But it's amazing how much water some of these fish can travel and will travel in the matter of a day or two. So who knows?
It is amazing. That is amazing.
So who knows if they have that
instinct,
homing device. Yeah, that instinct to go back. I don't know.
I know. I've heard too that it's not necessarily whether they go back to the beds, but it's also the amount of time that they're off the beds and that a predator can come and eat the fry or the eggs and that kind of thing. So
yeah.
Well, hopefully the male's still there fighting them off.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Because the male's not the one you're going to be putting in the box.
Yeah, hopefully not.
So, yeah.
Unless he's a big male. I mean, you get a 3-pound male and a 5-pound female, they're both going to the weigh-in, man. They're both going in the box. Sorry about your luck, kids.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I hope everyone enjoyed this show. Josh, we appreciate you coming on, man, and telling us your story, and we hope to have you on again sometime here soon in the future. You got anybody to shout out? You got anybody to shout out? Any sponsors or anything like that you want to shout out?
No, man.
Talk about your Facebook page and stuff like that, but
no, just God, man. I give all the glory to him, man. I am where I am today because of who he is in me. And I just want him to receive all the glory. Nobody else deserves it.
Amen.
That's awesome, Josh.
Yeah.
Well, Josh, thanks for coming on. God bless you. We appreciate you. And we wish you the best of luck in the upcoming tournaments that you got going on.
I really appreciate it. Carlisle, I'm glad I met you, man. You're a good dude. And I forget your name again. I'm sorry, brother.
No, Sean. It's okay.
John, yeah. So glad to have met you. I look forward to getting out on the water with you guys, either on my boat or a day of kayaking.
Oh, we gotta get him out on the kayak. We gotta get you out on the kayaks. We'll do
Never
that.
done it, man. I'm open to it. But yeah,
we'll do that one of these days once the river calms down a bit.
Sweet. I can't wait, man.
All right, Josh.
All right, brother.
Have a good night, Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
All right, Sean. Another awesome guest on the show.
Definitely.
That was fun. Josh he's a real knowledgeable person. Not only that, he's the son of God, He brings him first in his life, and look what he's doing. He's taking him places that he probably would have never thought would have happened. That is awesome.
Very cool.
I did want to mention, and I forgot to mention this in the beginning of the show. Come July, we will be having a new partner of the show, and it's a local shop and that's what we're all about. We want to support the local shops, do what we can for them. Blue Mountain Outfitters I had talked to them, back in February, and they were going through kind of like a ownership change, and I had talked to the new owners, and they want to do something with us. So come July, they will have their website they're going to do a whole online store and stuff like that, and they're going to give us a code for you guys, so you get a discount. So then, and they have everything up there. Anything you need for kayak accessories, they sell kayaks. That's where I bought my kayak back in February.
I got my foot
really
control
nice.
steering from them. So, yep.
Yeah, really nice people up there. They'll help you out any way they can. We're actually going to have the owner on the show when they do revamp their whole website, and we'll talk to her, and she can tell us everything new that's going on and all that stuff. So we're looking forward to a really healthy relationship with Blue Mountain Outfitters coming up in July. And yeah, I wanted to mention that. It was pretty exciting.
Very cool. Yeah, we're super excited. So
yeah. So you have anything, Sean?
Nope. Just if you guys go out, just be safe and have fun, and keep sending us your pictures. And we, thank you guys for all the support that you've given us. Working, checking out our sponsors and everything that helps us here pay for the show, and so keep that up if you can. And otherwise, just keep reaching out to us and letting us know how you're doing. If you have questions, hit us up. We're happy to help any way we can.
We'll see you next time, guys, with another special guest. You guys have a good 2 weeks, and be safe out there if you get out. Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you for tuning in to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget, for future shows, like, follow, share, and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you check out our individual channels and accounts too. Want to be a guest on one of our shows and talk of adventures, gear, or products? Contact us. Thank you for watching The Noob Show with Matt Gibson, Chasing the Tide with Dustin Nichols, The Rusty Hook with John Rapp, The River Run with Adam Fraser Pross, May Contain Fishing with Daniel Woodcock, Chasing the Twenties with Carlisle Esterly and Sean Lavery, Friday Night Bites with Brian Schiller. Thanks for tuning into the Paddle and Fin Network. Subscribe and always wear your PFD.